Thank you for listening to The Lawyer's Daughter. This is Jen Carroll, and this podcast does not have any video. I know I'm on YouTube, but that doesn't matter. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast here. Let's go get started. Hello, friends, and welcome to the podcast. It is day 68, August 30th, and I heard something yesterday, or read something yesterday, that, did you know, the fact that you're listening to me right now makes you extraordinary. And here's why. And this one just blew my mind. I read it last night. Most humans in the United States have not engaged with elections yet. They don't start until after Labor Day. Most. The majority. Which makes us super nerds. Nerds for Democracy. Thank you for joining the Nerds for Democracy. I now bestow you all with you have been knighted as nerds. And I'm happy to have you with us because we need more nerds fighting for our country. And we're going to talk about the Supreme Court this weekend, but not today. Today I decided to go in on a communication technique that's extremely powerful, that's in play right now. And I wanted to share this with you because we all know it's happening, but you may not know why it's so effective and why it's so powerful and why, in particular, the GOP goes there so hard. And that has to do with using insults as a campaign strategy. So there are some interesting communication and psychological and sociological research that shows that all of this is very effective. And I didn't cite all the studies because I wanted to keep this accessible. So I didn't go super academic on this blog, but instead I just tried to lift out the reasons why insults are effective. And even though we hate it, we just hate it. It happens all the time. You know the fundamentals. I think everyone listening knows the fundamentals. When you call someone a name, it allows you to be more cruel because you do dehumanize them. So if you said, hey, your mom, Matilda, wears ill-fitting fuzzy slippers, you'd be really insulted because Matilda may or may not wear fuzzy slippers, but to suggest that they're ill-fitting, what is wrong with you? Versus all old ladies cat ladies wear ill-fitting fuzzy slippers. You're like, yeah, you just accept it. Like, yeah, because you're not making it about a person. You're making it about a group of people, and it's easier to just decide that group of people. Now, there's lots of reasons this is also effective. There's lots of reasons this works. There's lots of reasons why we need labels to speak about groups of people. The problem is when we use the label to speak about the group of people, we shouldn't turn that label into a slur. The label should be legitimate. Like, here's a label, women. Here's a different label, cat ladies. See the difference? One's women, you know who you're talking about, and it just doesn't have a lot of bias, unless you happen to be biased towards women, but or biased against women. But in general, the label women helps you understand who we're talking about. Cat ladies, on the other hand, will have 75 definitions, including mine. So you can see how labels can really be used powerfully or as a problem to create confusion, to obfuscate and make things hard to figure out. So here we go. Let's dive in and you can understand why I wanted to look at these insults and how they're effective and how they're not effective. So typically, when we're looking at how the GOP is using harmful labels, they're generally going after three kinds of targets. Ethnic minorities, all of them, the criminals, the rapists, and the black job stealers. God, just look at those labels right there. Women, cat ladies, teachers, infertile ladies, women who don't want to have their baby, women who do want to have their baby, women who want to stay alive. Okay, women and LGBTQIA people. And I won't even go into the slurs there because they make me sick. I don't even think those people should be even in this discussion, honestly, because I cannot stand. It's such a minority and it is so attacked. And sorry, okay, I'm getting soapbox under the desk, Jen. Put it back under the desk. Okay, so let's see how these labels are being used and how they affect different voters and why they're harmful. So interestingly enough, labels are really powerful and they shape how we see the world, how we treat others, and how we even think. Politicians use these labels to make complex issues simple and understandable for their supporters. There's a legitimate purpose right there. I want to talk about people who don't have enough money. I would say people at the poverty line. There you go. That simplifies the issue for you and makes it understandable to supporters. People at the poverty line. You may not know what the poverty line is, but you can grasp the concept of shit. Those people are screwed. They're very poor. So there's a way to use labels to make a complex issue simple or understandable. So now we can have a conversation, right? The GOP uses labels like woke or radical to make people feel afraid or angry without really explaining the details. There you go, guys. There's not a common agreement about what these things mean, and that's why the labels become name-calling versus descriptive. Democrats have started calling Trump and Vance weird, which makes it easy for Trump supporters to dismiss Democrats as being out of touch. And we'll talk about that at the end, because don't think I don't know that we do it too. This is not one of those. I get it. We all do stuff. But there is a difference, and I'm going to explain the difference at the end. So let's first talk about ethnic slurs and racial division. The charged language has always, ethnic slurs, the whole point of this is to dehumanize the person of color. And it's always been used to divide people in politics, but it's gotten worse in this election. At his August rally, Trump called Vice President Harris a communist and the most radical left person ever to run for office. This is after the whole discussion of when Kamala turned black, which is white people. You see me at camera number 3. I feel like Jon Stewart right now. White people don't turn ethnic. That's not a thing. I only know that Rachel Doziel lady. I think she tried to turn ethnic. It's the only person I know of that's tried to turn into an ethnicity. So I don't get you, Donald, but you be you. You do you. So these labels, calling Kamala a communist and a radical left, is meant to scare people, especially conservative voters, to make them think Harris is a threat. And it makes it harder for minority groups to feel safe and welcome in the political process when he starts calling them names. And that's just one example. And that's probably not even the best example, because we know there's been far, far worse talk out of Trump's mouth about ethnic minorities. His whole Muslim ban. Oh God, don't even get me started. Okay, then we have gender-based slurs. And it's interesting because what he said under this racial division, the communism and the radical left person, often he wants to characterize minorities as being radical and woke, because that's his thing. If you're a person of color, you're radical and woke. You couldn't possibly be a rational person. You're some kind of person with an axe to grind and a point to make, right? That's how he does that. But then there's these gender-based slurs against women, and I gotta say, J.D. Vance has been knocking them out of the park. What is his deal with women? I don't know. But he has used gender-based slurs to make women in leadership look weak and uneducated. Well, it's an attempt to try to make women look weak and uneducated. He did a great one last night. He posted that he said Kamala during the debate will be like that poor thing who happens to be a MAGA supporter, but that poor Miss America contestant who said such as and geography and more maps for people in other countries because such as maps and such, that poor thing. He said Kamala would be like her, which was essentially saying Kamala would be as bad as a MAGA beauty contest contestant. He doesn't understand how to do jokes. I don't know how to explain this. J.D. Vance doesn't know how to do like regular things. He just needs to go be in a think tank somewhere and not anywhere near all of us. But let's go on. He wants women, he positions women all the time, even though he married quite a powerful woman, to look weak and uneducated, especially if they don't fit traditional gender roles. Vance has made cruel comments about women who don't have children. And then he went after Randy Weingarten, the head of the American Federation of Teachers. He's called her and others childless cat ladies. He tries to make them seem less important. And his strategy makes people think women in leadership, especially those who support progressive ideas, are not worth listening to. And especially if they don't have children. Because don't you know, people without children don't have skin in the game. Okay, don't even I'm like thinking of my friends that don't have children and they're like, I can't imagine telling them that they don't count, but okay. This strategy, let's see, Vance's comments are meant to push women out of politics and make it harder for them to fully participate. I'll take that even further. I truly believe he thinks that women shouldn't vote and just the head of household, which is a man in his world, should vote. I honestly think he believes women's rights because he's the one who wrote the foreword for Project 2025. And we know in Project 2025, it's all about eliminating women as full citizens in our democracy. They want to put us in that marginalized role in their vision in their 2025 mandate for leadership. And then we have anti-LGBTQIA rhetoric. Again, this is to me some of the most disgusting because this is just not a lot of people here. J.D. Vance, once again, has gone after this group of people, and his actions are meant to marginalize and dehumanize the communities. He even introduced the Protect Children's Innocent Act with Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is full of anti-transgender ideas. He made fun of International Pronoun Day on social media, and these are all actions that are part of a plan to make this group of people seem like a threat to traditional values. I don't know who decided LGBTQIA people were trying to come for traditional values, but most of the people I know who's LGBTQIA are pretty normal people. So I don't know. Traditional values are for shit because I don't know what that means, but I see them as being accepted in society and the political process, even though the GOP does not want them anywhere near anything. I think they want to put these people all in an island somewhere. And finally, weaponizing the term woke, which is a huge one for the GOP. Both Trump and Vance have used the term woke. By the way, define it, because I don't know what it means. But woke is described as an insult to discredit people who care about social justice. So by turning woke into a bad word, they try to make people who care about equality seem extreme or dangerous. And in fact, if you look at where woke goes, and where woke gets associated, it absolutely has to do with protecting our individual rights, human rights, and civil rights. So if you're a civil rights person, you're woke. That's only by inference because I don't know what the word means. Anyway, the tactic simplifies complex issues and makes dismissing those who want to change things to be woke easier. You want to dismiss someone? Call them woke. Now you have the label and it's easy to be ignored. So these labels affect people differently. So let's talk a little bit about how this affects the electorate. On the impact on non-Trump voters is really disempowerment. So when they use this kind of language, being attacked, if you're a Harris voter, being attacked shuts down discussion, right? This is especially true for these marginalized groups. It demoralizes and alienates people because when you're labeled negatively, you might feel like you're under attack, and it might feel like you're not welcome, and it might feel like your vote doesn't matter. Hearing this all the time can wear people down and make them less likely to vote. As in, I don't have a chance, nothing's going to change, I don't matter. That's a big one. I hate that. I don't matter. You matter. We matter. We matter. What if just in terms of energy, your energy, if I could just convince you that your energy matters on the planet? It matters. Look at how we've tapped energy with this flip on the Harris campaign. The energy has been tapped. That energy matters. Trump's attacks on Harris are not just about discrediting her, but creating a hostile environment for her supporters, especially women of color. Similarly, Vance's hurtful comments about LGBTQIA people and his actions against transgender rights make these communities feel excluded and afraid to participate in the democratic process. We aren't even going to talk about domestic terrorism here because I ain't qualified to talk about it, but I'm going to tell you, this is where, when you use all these labels, this is how it's easy to hurt someone that you don't perceive as human. These are why names are bad. Always. Names are always bad. And it's generally the path to violence. A long path, I hope. But some people jump right in. We've already seen it. It also, for Harris voters, the name calling suppresses turnout. This fear and intimidation from the labels can make people afraid to vote. And of course, they've managed to operationalize the fear and intimidation in some election election areas, your counties. Some election boards are managing to actually make people afraid to vote. They've said you can't have water, you can't have food, you can't have umbrellas, you can't have safety, you can't have access, you can't get there because we moved the booths to a different location, you can't come get your ballot, you can't have one in the mail. Like all of that because people are bad. Remember, all this started with name calling and with BS allegations, and it does suppress turnout because you feel defeated. You feel like you don't have a chance. And if you are a blue dot in a red state, we love you. Feel our energy, because I bet it is hell of hard to be you where you are. So know you have the strength of all of us behind you, because I know it's got to be hard. Of course, the fewer people that get to vote always works better for Republicans. Republicans' main strategy is voter suppression because they don't own the majority. We are the majority. We woke motherfuckers. Excuse me. I should edit that, but sorry, we own the majority. We need to vote. And then, of course, being called names, if you're a Democrat, it undermines our political legitimacy by constantly attacking the character and the identity of opponents. And you can watch this in down ballot races. Carrie Lake is a master of this. She's the biggest mouth on the planet, other than maybe Marge or Lauren Boebert. Watch those just roll around in my mouth, those names. But I'm so appalled. These are women. I'm just appalled. Anyway, it undermines the political legitimacy because Trump and his allies try to make candidates and their supporters seem less legitimate. And this weakens trust in the democratic process, making non-Trump voters feel their participation doesn't matter. And Vance's use of derogatory language delegitimizes LGBTQIA efforts in politics by questioning the credibility of the voters and their leaders. He just wants to push these people out of the political arena. So that's the downside, how the negative stuff can affect Harris voters. What does it do for Trump voters? And this is really important because this is why he does it, right? For Trump supporters, these labels are very different. And part of this, the reason this works is because in many ways, Trump supporters, most of them are in the cult. Not all of them. There are some Trump supporters. I would guess they're Trump voters. I think Trump supporters might be a stretch. I think they're Trump voters who aren't necessarily supporters. So I'm talking about the people who are supporters at this point. And the labeling strategy makes them feel more powerful and justified in what they think, even if what they think is based on misinformation, or prejudice. So get that. So by using the labels and by never defining the terms and by keeping things in that abstract of the bad guys versus the good guys, it really creates a culture that's hard to leave, and a culture that is based on misinformation and prejudice because we're never talking about what's real. Trump rarely talks about what's real. I have yet to figure out the sharks. I don't know what the electric boat was all about. I don't know why batteries are important to him. He talks about non-real all the time. In fact, I think that's some of how he keeps his folks delighted, is that he goes into non-real land. I don't know. It doesn't work on me. But what Trump does do with this behavior, and what Vance is trying to do, although he's not as good at it, he doesn't know how to pull it off like Trump. Trump really acts like he has a grievance. Vance acts like he's just whining. And I think that's probably the difference. So when Trump and Vance do this, though, it reinforces beliefs. when they use radical or woke, it makes their supporters feel like their fears are valid and that they're on the right side of the fight. And this will often allow the supporters, the voters, to accept extreme views and less likely to question their leaders. So these concepts and labels, why would you question? First of all, it's really hard to question. But second of all, when you don't really know what they mean, it's a lot harder to question, right? It's just imagine Dana Bash trying to ask Trump some deep down questions about what he says, rather than just how typically what happens when people just let him ramble and not answer all the time. Ramble and not answer. I have no idea how the debate's going to work. Somebody threw out the idea of run it like Jeopardy, at least the first half. I love it. Like that they have to say, I'll take immigration for 200, Alex. And then the question is, what would be the fastest way to move current immigrants onto a path for citizenship? And then they both have to answer. The answer is whatever. I think that would be great because we never get any details from Donald, right? Never. There's never a detail. And if he has a detail, it's so batshit crazy and it's supported by nothing. It's just something he makes up. The only thing that supports everything Trump wants to do is Project 2025. That's your best shot of seeing something written down. And he gives no you-know-whats about what he's doing other than himself. So he'll do whatever he needs to do if it works for him. So, okay, so this is why I think it's so interesting that this man's gotten this far, because half the time he speaks in non-specific terms and with the terms of hate and marginalization, and everybody thinks that's okay. The other problem that for Trump supporters, that the problem for us and the thing that works for them is that using labels encourages groupthink. And groupthink is when you belong to a group and you all essentially believe the same things. And it's very bad. Groupthink is I look out for this all the time when I'm working with my business clients. I'm sorry, I accidentally just hit the microphone. I look for this all the time when I work with my business clients. Groupthink can often happen in corporations because everybody's trying so hard to kiss the ass of the leadership. And in the process of kissing everybody's ass, everybody conforms. And then they all start to believe the same thing. And you need people who are fighting groupthink to make sure that you are not missing important information. So in a political context, that groupthink works similarly in that there's no room for differing opinions. That's the whole point of groupthink. You have to conform. And this makes Trump supporters less open to new ideas and more likely to dismiss others who disagree. So we talk a lot about those people. I just said there's Trump supporters and I think there's Trump voters. I think our target are Trump voters, not Trump supporters. Trump supporters are in this up to their eyeballs with the groupthink and the beliefs and all of that. The Trump voters, who are not so aligned with the groupthink, are probably where we can go move people and get them to come over to the light and away from the dark side. So just think of that distinction between a supporter and a voter. I'm pretty sure my friends are not supporters. I'm pretty sure my friends are voters. That should be easier to get them to move. Yeah, one would think. I'm still working on it, guys. Still working. You know I'm not letting that one go. And then finally, one of the ways that this works for Trump supporters, these labels and these ghastly name calling, is it mobilizes his supporters against others. The labels make it easier for Trump supporters to see others as enemies. So when people are labeled as radical or woke, they're seen as less human, what makes it easier to justify mistreating them or ignoring their rights. At rallies, Trump supporters often chant slogans that include these labels, showing how the label strategy is used to mobilize and unite them against a common enemy. And this behavior can lead to a more divided and hostile political environment. And again, domestic violence. Domestic violence is couples, right? I mean domestic terrorism. I hate saying that, man. I hate domestic terrorism. Those are two words I just don't like ever having together. So the impact on democracy is significant. It is harmful. It divides people. It makes them less likely to participate in the political process like voting. And it creates fear and hostility. And when people are labeled and put into boxes, it just makes it so hard to have honest conversations. It makes solving our country's biggest problems that much more difficult because we're so busy fighting each other instead of working together. And so as this election continues, it's important that we recognize how labeling works as a tactic and how it's a strategy to divide us and take away our power. And by understanding how these labels are used to control and manipulate us, we can resist the tactics and work better to create a more unified and fair society. In fact, right now, my goal, although we could look and I may have made a mistake, but I'm trying super hard to not call names. I will call someone out for their tactic or approach or lack of information, but I'm trying hard not to just say, Marjorie Taylor. I'm glad it's been so nice to have Congress at home at the dog days of August while this is going on, because we haven't put up with a lot of their hijinks. Unfortunately, Congress is going to be back in session very shortly, and a lot of these people are going to be back in the headlines. They've just been quiet for a while. It's been so nice. But we have to be ready because it's going to heat up. Remember, this election's just turning on for most people. And I did do a sidebar. It's the end of the blog, but I want to include this because I want to talk about this Dems call things weird, and why it's okay. It's not necessarily okay, but it is different. And let me explain why. The Democrats, and I think this started with Tim Walz, God love this man for just being normal, have called Trump and Vance weird, which makes people ask, why is it okay if Dems do it, but when the GOP does it, it's bad? The main difference is the purpose and effect of these words. The GOP is using labels like woke and radical to scare people and create division, making the opponents seem like dangerous threats to American values. And that fear can lead to seeing others as less human and trying to stop them from voting. On the other hand, Democrats use the word weird to make fun and dismiss their opponents, using humor to show how out of touch they think Trump and Vance are. While both strategies can divide the people, the Democrats' use of weird is more about behavior than attacking who someone is. And that's what it's been for me the whole time. Both sides still need to be careful. Using labels, even as a joke, can make it harder for people to talk to each other and find common ground. But the big distinction is that we're acknowledging behavior and they're dismissing human beings. That's the difference. So you should know that in case you get in a discussion. But anytime you say something's weird, think the behavior's weird. Just like you could say your friend put something strange in their drink, and you go, that was weird. And your friend goes, I know, right? Wasn't that weird? But if you see your friend do that and go, you're woke, your friend be like, what? What are you even talking about? Don't label me. What does woke have to do with what I just put in my drink? Get the difference? One's about a behavior. We comment on people's behavior all the time. It's a moment in time. It's their behavior. Sometimes behavior is good, bad, otherwise. But calling someone a name is talking about them. So there you go. All right. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. I really enjoyed doing this. I hope it helps you be clear about why this name calling is so bad for our democracy, and work on it. And we'll all make it a personal mission to work on this for ourselves, right? I have taken it a personal mission. You can choose what you want to do because you have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Knock yourself out. Talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Make sure you subscribe and rate, and I'll be back with another episode really soon.